Okay, so today is April 13th, 2021. My name is Vivian Zhang, an intern at the Houston Asian American Archive, and today I have the privilege of interviewing Mr. David So. So, Mr. So, can you briefly introduce yourself, kind of when and where you were born?
Yeah, hi. My name is David So. I was born in Daejeon, South Korea in 1987.
So, what was your life like in Korea when you're growing up?
So I was in Korea from 87 to 95. So I was there until I was 8 years old. Uh, my younger brother is a year younger than I am. I was finishing up on first grade when I moved to the States.
Mhm.
So we grew up in an apartment complex with many of our cousins on my mom's side. My mom has 8 brothers and sisters. My dad has 4 brothers and sisters. Mostly on my mom's side, we were congregated in the Daejeon area. So it was a big family that we grew up in. That's an environment that I remember fondly. It My life would have been a lot different if I had stayed there. I mean, obviously, but um,
Mhm.
the point I want to make is that moving to the States, that was our family was the first one to actually live abroad out of the many aunts and uncles, families that we had. So we were here in the States, um, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I, the 4 of us. So it was kind of a shock to experience that kind of loss of community at first. We didn't know anybody. Um, we couldn't speak the language, so and that was a bit of a shocking experience for me. Yeah.
Mhm. What was like the household or like the neighborhood and like city like in Korea where you grew up?
So Korea has these multi-story apartment buildings, and you have
Mhm.
hundreds of families in one building. You know, the place we lived in, we had 15 stories, and I believe like 100 different families in there, and that was just one building. This complex
Wow.
had like dozens and dozens of these buildings, and our cousins lived in those other apartments, and we would go out after school, just play in the parking lots all day until it gets dark, and we'd come back in. We were we were roaming free in those days. It's not like what we have here, where parents are
Mhm.
always aware of where their kids are. It's just as long as we were back before dark, we were fine.
Yeah. Why did your family decide to come
The
to the US?
so my dad was a he was an assistant pastor for one of the larger churches in Daejeon.
Mhm.
He had several other assistant pastors with him, and what he wanted to do was further his studies. This decision, how old was he? He was he was almost 40 years old when he decided to move to the States to attend seminary in New Orleans. He wanted
Wow.
to go for his master's and then in Stockard. So he made the decision to
Mhm.
go back to school at 40 and brought his wife and 2 kids along with him to this place called New Orleans, which was just completely beyond anything that we've ever imagined. Like it's New Orleans itself is just different from America to begin with. It's
Yeah, yeah.
the rest of America. New Orleans has a crazy, weird culture. It's also a
Mhm.
melting pot over there. So yeah, that's the reason why we moved to the States in '95, so that
So
my dad could go to school.
you were a PK, like a pastor's kid.
Right?
That's what
Problem
they call
kids.
it. You called yourself like the middle child of immigration. Like, what does that mean?
So that's a phrase that I revisit often. So we have the first generation immigrants who were born in the States, and then we have the second generation I'm sorry, first generation who are born abroad and immigrate to
Mhm.
the States, and then the second generation who are born in the States and are, Americans.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
another middle generation. I'd like to say that I'm a 1.5 generation immigrant because I came when
Mm.
I was very little. I was born in Korea, my Korean identity was just about to form. It hadn't fully matured yet. And then all of a sudden, we're thrown into this entirely new environment. Um, so we're the middle children because we don't fully identify as Korean, nor do we fully identify as American. Uh, but the funny thing is, we're comfortable in a room full of Americans or a room full of Koreans, but
Mhm.
that sense of belongingness is sometimes just not there for us. Um, and that could sometimes lead to an identity crisis, which I think I may have suffered for uh, without really having thought about it. I think that was it's one of the reasons why us middle children, 1.5 generationers, we hang out with each other a lot. If you look at our friend groups,
Mhm.
you'll find that 1.5 generation Korean Americans uh, identify with each other, hang out with each other a lot. We commiserate. But we also, there's an opportunity there because our Korean understanding of its history, its culture, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's part of who we are. But our identity as Americans, it's also there too. It's whole. You wouldn't be able to distinguish me from any other Asian American if you didn't know about my history.
Mhm.
But there's that something that I can't really, it's hard for me to articulate.
Yeah,
There's
that
a
makes
sense,
sense.
a lack of belongingness in each
Yeah.
community for us.
Yeah, because you're like not quite part of either community.
Exactly. So, and no one's saying that those factors are external. It's just the way we've grown up. It's our own history. It's very personal to us. That creates some challenges for us. And I think if we were able to individually come to terms with these issues, I think we'll have a lot to offer um, our communities because we're by nature connectors. Because we were in between, we had to be able to identify with both our first generation Korean parents. We also had to identify with our second generation Korean immigrants or non-immigrant peers.
Mhm.
But we had to learn how to survive and fit in. Uh, an early stage in life. So
Yeah.
with those challenges came opportunities. And I think that's the prevailing theme of my life that I'd like to discuss with you
Mhm.
over the course of this interview. So yeah, let's
Yeah,
proceed. We'll talk
sure.
more about that later.
Of course, yeah. What was like growing up in New Orleans like when you first immigrated to the United States?
I was I was excited to go to school. I couldn't speak
Mhm.
the language, but the difficulties of communicating, it faded fast. Like I think just after a few months, I was just fully acclimated to it.
That's good.
Even though I couldn't, I didn't know the alphabet when I came to the States, but after about the first year, I was going at it. I think I may have been
Mhm.
particularly gifted in language, but it's definitely kids learn they pick up languages fast.
Mhm.
I remember, I think it was like the first week where I was sad and crying and telling mom that I wanted to go back to Korea, but it only lasted a week. I got used to it right away.
Yeah.
And in New Orleans, we went to public school in New Orleans, and if you
Mhm.
grew up in Houston, Texas, you're very blessed because your schools here, public schools, are incredible. But that wasn't the case in South Louisiana. We had, you know, crumbling buildings with shoddy meals. Our teachers had a lack of teachers. All the
Yeah.
students were troublemakers. Um, Parkview Elementary, right next to the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, is I don't think it's there anymore, but
Mhm.
I had fun. I've always had this nonchalant, chill attitude that uh, helped me be comfortable where I live. But that wasn't really
Yeah.
the case for my little brother. He was bullied, and
Mhm.
you know, I mean, we all were bullied, but I think it was especially harder for him. He was
Yeah.
in first grade, I was in third grade
Yeah.
when we started. So I skipped second grade altogether because I
Oh
left
wow.
Korea after my first year.
Mhm.
Came to the States and started my third year. It was the summer of '95. So Korean school years end with, is that right? The Korean school year begins um, in the winter and ends at the end of the year.
Mm.
So I came in the middle of my second year. Okay. So I
Oh,
didn't
okay.
skip it completely. I just skipped one semester. But yeah.
Yeah.
I remember like math was great. Like I loved like um, being able to do this stuff, even though I couldn't really speak English. We
Mhm.
had all, the level of mathematics education is vastly different between, the US and the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So math was a subject that I really enjoyed. And then English and all the other activities. I think I remember learning Spanish
Mm.
back then. Yeah, so yeah, I mean school was just a great time. Even though I couldn't speak the language, I picked it up right away.
Mhm.
And by fourth grade, I was just going at it. I was yapping
Yeah.
away in English.
Were there any other
Mhm.
like Korean American or Asian American students at your
There
public
were a,
school?
there were a couple at Parkview Elementary because there were other Korean American pastors attending
Mm.
seminary at the nearby school. So we had a few, and we're still close friends. The Korean pastors community is very close knit, so everybody knows
Yeah, yeah,
what's going on with each other.
yeah.
We did
What
have
types
other
of
Korean
value?
students.
Yeah.
Now, in middle school, no, we moved to Baton Rouge after my fourth grade year. That's about an
Mhm.
hour away from New Orleans. And there were considerably less Korean students in my classes there. Maybe I had like one other guy. So.
Yeah. What types of values would you say your parents like emphasized during your upbringing?
So, I mean, I've been going to church since I was in my mom's belly.
Mhm.
So church was everything for my parents. It was that community, it was service, it was faith, and that's all they ever talked about, and all they ever cared about, and all they ever uh, talk about still to this day. And my grandma who passed away, she take care of me and my brother while my parents were working, into the evening. My dad was, like I said, an assistant pastor. My mom was the executive assistant to the senior pastor. And we had like 10,000 people at that church in Daejeon. So it was kind of a big deal. Um, and they were very busy. And it didn't stop once we came to the States. My dad was appointed as the senior pastor of the Korean Baptist Church of Baton Rouge in '97. And church was everything. I mean, they gave everything that they had to the church. Eventually, my mom had to start working to support the family while my dad was serving in church. So it's there's no way around it. The church has been an incredibly important part of my life. Now, the flip side of that is they're not like any other Asian parents where
Mm.
it was important for me to excel and study, get straight A's, go out of state to the Ivy Leagues. It was never emphasized in my life. And
Yeah.
I think my parents were kind of fortunate because my brother and I, we never really struggled with studying.
Mhm.
Um, so it came naturally to us. They did want us to read a lot. Um, so they provided the books. I think that reading early on has made a significant impact on our intellect, our ability to consume knowledge. So they did encourage us to read, but grade-wise, they didn't really place any focus on that because for them it wasn't important for us to do that. The only thing that was important was for us to grow up as men of faith and the importance of service to others, to the community. Now, the flip side of that is it may feel like upon reflection that I've been neglected, my brother and I, a little bit, that they were a little bit careless. I think that's one interpretation of that. For example, like when I had stellar grades in high school, um,
Mhm.
good, sorry, great SAT scores, ACT scores. I had everything that I needed to make it to an out-of-state school, um, even Leagues. It was very good. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to brag or anything, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the point that I'm trying to bring up is that my parents didn't care.
Mm.
They didn't ask about my college applications, are you applying for scholarships? They didn't worry about any of that.
Yeah. Didn't
So
really
I thought,
push
okay,
you.
well, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I'll apply to. This is a funny story that my friends make fun of all the time. Or maybe I'll like apply to Harvard and see what happens. And then I didn't apply to any other schools, right? I just applied to Harvard and just sat back and relaxed. And Harvard waitlisted me, I think it was like in April of my senior year. And I'm like, oh, I got waitlisted. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to come up with something. And I applied to, I mean, all the deadlines have passed for all the out-of-state schools. So I applied to
Yeah.
LSU. I got in with a full scholarship. And yeah, I've been in Louisiana all throughout my college years too, and then some work years after that. But now I'm thinking, wow, I struggled so much,
Mm.
in college and in my life after college, trying to make it. Now I wonder if my parents had pushed me a little more, if they cared about my
Mm.
academic success, maybe I would have been able to um, go out of state, go to a better school, get better training, education, build
Yeah.
a stronger network, and maybe I would have, actually accomplished something. That has been a struggle for me for a while, but it's it's all moot because I love being in Houston. I love that my
Mhm.
life's path has led me to Houston. I love the people that I've met here. I love the opportunities that they're out there for me in the future. I love the strong Asian community we have here. It's incredible. And I don't know if I would have ended up in Houston had I gone
Mhm.
to school out of state. So I'm very grateful for my experience. And I think my parents are right. Well, maybe they could have cared a little more about my grades and, and, and teaching your kid to you know, work hard to excel. I think that's important. But other than that, I mean, they weren't wrong. I was taken care of. My life is I'm very content with where I am in my life. So,
Yeah. That's good.
so
Everything
my
turned out
experience is
okay.
a little different from
Yeah. The
the average
typical.
Asian American student.
Mhm.
But my brother, though, he had some sort of epiphany in college. He used to be a troublemaker in high school, getting suspended, getting into fights, skipping class. But he was never, he was he didn't have trouble with his studies.
Mhm.
He went to Baton Rouge High, which was one of the best schools, public schools that you can go to in Baton Rouge. And I went to McKinley, which was they had a gifted program, but McKinley it's a historically black high school. And some decades ago, it had been integrated. And they introduced the gifted program as part of that integration effort.
Mhm.
And McKinley, I'm also grateful for the experiences that I had at McKinley. We were exposed to people of different races. Uh, I played a season of football
Mhm.
with my high school mates there before I got injured on the first play of the season. So I was done with that. I played soccer for 3 years after that. But yeah, my exposures to different cultures, different peoples, different races, I value that highly. And I'm very grateful for McKinney for providing me that opportunity. It was, come to think of it, it was one of the best times of my life in high school.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So yeah,
Yeah.
McKinley, then high school. Oh yeah, my brother, yeah, he had some sort of an epiphany in college. And he decided to get straight A's in college, even though he was a troublemaker in school. And then he went to
Mhm.
med school at LSU, Northern
Oh wow.
University, and then now he's about to start his career as an ophthalmology, well, retina surgeon in South Bend, Indiana. So
Wow,
I
I'm
think
from
my parents did
Indiana.
a pretty good job of raising kids.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Free range children, free range Asian.
Mhm.
It turned out okay.
Yeah. Speaking of like your time at LSU, like what did you decide to study there when you went?
You know, I came to LSU and I wanted to study everything. I
Mhm.
really didn't have any idea what I wanted to do. So I just initially took the basic courses that everyone has to take. I was also in the honors college when I started. So I took these honor seminars where we studied history. We took lectures on them and just them in seminar. That experience is probably one of the best experiences I had in college. It was very intellectually stimulating. My peers were brilliant people. If you look at what they're doing right now, I mean, yeah, they were excellent students, very hard workers, very smart. And LSU's Honors College was able to expose me to that network of peers.
Mhm.
I wish I had focused on being closer to them and developed a better relationship with them. I do still talk to one of my classmates. He's my roommate, Zachary Keller. Um, he's the smartest guy I've ever met, and he's very genuine and diligent. We were roommates for 3 years. He went off to Yale Law School after LSU, and then he's now a U.S. attorney
Wow.
somewhere. I can't remember, but yeah, he's in Dallas right now, and we communicate frequently. But I'm still thankful that LSU was able to expose me to those brilliant people. The professor who led my seminars, Dr. Drew LaMonica Arms, she was also a brilliant character. Oxford scholar. Um, she she she's an administrator at the Honors College who handles scholarships. So she mentors and nurtures all these Rhodes scholars, Truman scholars, Goldwater scholars. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was a great opportunity. But college, I got distracted. I
Yeah.
I started partying, skipping class. When everything was easy, like when classrooms weren't challenging growing up, it you miss the opportunity to develop critical skills like
Mhm.
the importance of putting in the effort and sticking
Yeah.
it out whenever it's tough. Some things that you find boring, things that don't immediately produce results. Um, if you leave a kid to his own devices, I think they'll naturally stray away from pursuing these things. And what they end up doing is seeking immediate gratification, which I think happened a lot over the course of my childhood and teenage years. So college, when the courses started to get a little more difficult, I think I struggled a lot. It was when it came time for me to put in the effort, I just didn't have the tools necessary. So I struggled academically, I think, in my junior and senior classes, some of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the course material was really difficult, but I didn't have the discipline to put in the time
Yeah.
to do what I did, do what was necessary to do. That's a that's something that I value highly now, being
Yeah.
disciplined. And
Yeah.
you
I
know,
understand that. I think a lot of like gifted children who like had it easy growing up struggle when they
yeah,
actually have to like apply themselves or like they don't come as easily as you get older.
exactly. And all they hear is like, "Oh, you're so smart. You're brilliant."
Yeah.
They raise you up, lift you up like that. Then you start to fear. You start to develop this fear of failure. You don't
Mhm.
want to be challenged. You want to always be the smartest in the room because you're just so used to that. And
Mhm.
not being, you're not okay with not being the smartest guy in the room, and that can be detrimental. You always want to surround yourself with
Yeah.
people who are better and smarter and stronger than you. That's the only way you can improve. and you have to accept failure. You have to be willing to get back up when you get knocked down. And these are the critical skills that I wish that my parents had known to instill in me. But I mean, it's fine. I'm 33 now. I'm learning now.
Mhm.
With my new company that I started last year, I'm learning. Every hour that I put into this job, into this company, is an hour that I get paid for. And if I don't work, I don't get paid.
That's
So
true.
it's I'm learning what I should have learned 15
Mhm.
years ago. But hey, that's how my life script's written. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. So, what was the major that you ended up picking at LSU?
So I vacillated between, oh, should I do psychology? Oh, I love history. I love reading about Korean history, American history, world history. I took a few AP courses, so I didn't have to take history in college. I didn't have to take math in college. Um, I couldn't decide. So basically, I started. Okay, why don't I just get a general degree, business,
Mhm.
finance, and uh, and see where it goes. So that was my sophomore year, and I started taking business classes.
Yeah.
I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Finance.
Besides like school, what other clubs or like extracurriculars were you involved in college?
My freshman year, I was very active. I was part of the uh, club soccer team at OSU. Honors College had their own extracurricular programs. And once I entered business school, there's a organization called Students in Free Enterprise. There's also a student managed investment fund project that I was involved in. Um, what else did I do? But yeah, like I said, I was distracted. Instead, I focused on my studies and my extracurriculars,
Mm.
broadening my horizons. Instead of doing that, I just spent all my time just uh, dating and partying, and it's it's part of the biggest reasons why I would say that maybe I wasn't ready for college.
Mm.
Maybe I needed some more world experiences, life experiences before I could truly understand the value of college. Because now I do. I really want to go back to school now. I
Mhm.
want to pursue a master's in business administration. Um,
Mhm.
and I think I'm definitely going to give that a shot. I've been tutoring some college students on my spare time, and the courses are
Yeah.
very intellectually stimulating. It's actually a break from my regular work. Like for this
Mhm.
one student, I'm teaching econometrics right now, and the process of learning, going over it, and then teaching the material to my students, uh, I like it a lot,
Yeah, it's very
and I wish I
rewarding.
had given college a fair chance, but I'm ready. I'm prepared to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, the master's program. We'll see.
Where did you end up going to work after you graduated from college?
So I graduated college in 2009 in finance,
Mhm.
and if you'll remember the Great Recession of
Mm.
2008 and 2009, nobody was hiring
Yes.
in finance. We were firing in finance.
Mhm.
So I graduated school without a job offer from my field. Plus, the internship that I had to take, um, I neglected to seriously pursue these. I mean, I was talking to one of my very good friends who works at Chevron, and I discussed his path. It was only a couple of days ago, but he stressed the importance of just getting your name out there, no matter what it takes. Opportunities are there. It's just you need to put in work to find it. If it takes 100 applications, if it takes knocking on, you know, every single booth at the career fair, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
College interns are valuable commodities.
Mhm.
The companies are more than willing to do what it's necessary to find a place for a college intern, but the process is you have to find the right person. Companies don't want just anybody. They want somebody that fits in with their goals, their culture. So the process of finding the right match takes time. So even if you have less than stellar grades or backgrounds, spend time at these career fairs, knock on these doors, visit every booth. You don't have any idea what the actual industry is like. I mean, you might have an idea of what working in finance is like, working in banks, real estate, or any other job that's out there, construction, but you don't really know until you get there. You learn on the job. So what I needed to do was, yeah, just start these companies and knock until one of them opens the door for you. I didn't do that. I only interviewed at a couple places, and I didn't want to do that in the summer. I just wanted to go back to Korea
Mhm.
and have fun. So that's what I did. In 2010, after my graduation, I went back to Korea. I was a private tutor for a while. Um, Came back. I helped mom with her business for a couple of years before moving to New Orleans uh, to work there. I got a job in 2000, end of 2014, early 2015 at Bank of America Merrill Lynch as a uh, financial advisor. It's not a, you know, it's not really uh, it's not like an analyst position where your knowledge of finance is highly, it's critical. It's more like it's more of a financial consulting
Yeah,
position.
yeah.
It's more of a advisory position. There are elements of sales, producing business, bringing in assets to the company.
Mhm.
But I did have some exposure to corporate culture there. And that's in New Orleans, my experiences there. That's when I um, first had exposure to volunteering. I mean, I was interviewing for Bank of America, but I wasn't really doing anything other than just some part-time jobs at the time. But volunteering for the Korean American community in New Orleans was extremely rewarding. My professional growth began with my involvement in community service. And that's when I first
Mhm.
realized the importance of, of networking with your community. Um, because there are so many organic opportunities for someone in that situation, someone who's young, who's willing to work, willing to serve. Uh, if I could find such an opportunity in New Orleans, then such opportunities are just boundless in Houston. And I worked as a public relations director for the Korean Association there. And what I did was, I think it hasn't been done in like years and years and years, over decades. We actually started a monthly newsletter for the Korean community there. I think there's about like 2,000. We collected the addresses and phone numbers of all the Korean Americans in New Orleans, and we published an address book. Um, take seniors out on picnics to the plantations. So that was very nice. I was the only guy just herding a bunch of 70, 80-year-old Koreans, and
Mhm.
had a great time. We hosted fairs, just a lot of community building. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and that, one thing or another, it led me to an interview with Bank of America. And I was given the position, and that's when my career trajectory that led me here actually started.
So how did you end up here in Houston? Was it also because of another job change?
Yes, there was a job change. Uh, the president of the Korean Association in New Orleans was attending a conference in Houston, and he met the president of the association here in Houston. I
Mhm.
was introduced to him, and this gentleman had been in the insurance industry for 40 years. He was one of the first Korean American insurance agencies in town. And he was looking for an exit, and he needed a Korean speaking manager to take care of his client once he retires, because he was selling his book of business to an American businessman. So 95% of the clientele of this agency is Korean, and the owner's an English speaker. He's an Italian American guy. So there needs to be somebody in between to manage to it's and like I said, this role of a middle child, this theme of being able to connect with different people of different backgrounds, people with different languages and perspective, it was a very important part in the work that I did back then and the work that I do now. My Korean is actually, I have a business level proficiency in Korean. Even though I came in this, even though I arrived in the States when I was 8, I didn't forget Korean. We spoke Korean at home, spoke Korean at church, read an immense amount in Korean, Korean history books, Korean novels, Korean cartoons, Korean drama, Korean TV shows. I mean, you guys know now, it's popular all over the world, but I was exposed to that throughout my life. So, and I was interpreting my dad's sermon over radio at church since I was a sophomore in high school. So I had done that for quite some time, and it sucked to do it. It was a lot of work. I didn't want to do it. But now I'm very grateful that I did it. It enabled me to do the work that I do now. So I was offered a position as the manager to help with the transition to manage relationships. And in 2016, almost 2 years at Bank of America, I decided to move to Houston and move to a small agency. So going from corporate to this tiny ethnic insurance agency was a bit of a change, but I was very excited to be a part of what was going on in Houston. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the industry is similar. I mean, we're all dealing with risk. Financial advisors are necessary to advise and counsel wealthy clients. It's when you have that much wealth, growth or making money isn't as important as protecting it. So we use vehicles like life insurance and annuities to add much needed protections to these assets. That was back when I was at Merrill Lynch, Bank of America. But now here in Houston, I focus more on the property and casualty side of insurance, which deals with like, let's say you're a restaurant owner and somebody slips and falls, or somebody eats something, it's a serious stomach virus. The restaurant is at fault. There's liability. Insurance is necessary to protect people's liabilities, to protect businesses from claims of negligence. It protects the business's assets, its revenues, and also, like, if the business burns down or something, there's always insurance. And it's a little more complicated than that, but I switched over from one side of insurance to the other, moving to Houston. And I managed that transition. The owner that purchased it sold it to another, and I've been with that book of business because I was integral to service. It was that ability to connect with the clients that was necessary. Otherwise, they would have gone somewhere else, right? If they speak limited English, why would they not work with somebody that can speak their own language? So being able to speak Korean and English was uh, an incredible opportunity for me.
Yeah.
I
Like,
did need to connect with the insurance companies and the various brokers on the backside, and then
mhm.
facing forward with my clients, I would have to speak Korean. So I have a very important role, I think, in serving as that conduit.
Yeah. Yeah. How
Mhm.
did you end up starting like your own business? Is it like Axios? Is that how you say it?
Axios, yeah,
Yeah.
Axios is
How did
great
you
for
end up
the
starting that?
arrival. So when the agency ownership switched hands twice, what I would have to do is with the new owners, I had to approach all of these insurance companies and say, hey, we're making this acquisition and they have these policy contracts with you. But these new owners, they don't have a contract with the insurance companies. So without that contract, what we call an appointment, we're
Mhm.
not able to service these clients that have these policies. So let's say, what's a company name you've probably heard of? Have you heard of Progressive Insurance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Progressive Auto Insurance, right? So you have
Mhm,
people with
mhm.
Progressive Auto Insurance. When they have an accident, they call the company Progressive to file a claim and get paid to fix their car. Now, um, there's an agent in between. An agent of Progressive manages the transaction, helps the customer select the appropriate coverage and services account. Um, and that agent needs to be appointed by Progressive. So I went through this process of seeking appointments with multiple insurance companies because in an independent insurance brokerage, it's not like State Farm where a State Farm agent can only deal with State Farm. An independent brokerage deals with multiple insurance companies that
Mhm.
appoint them as agents. Um, so during the first acquisition back in 2016, I saw closely what it would take to run an agency,
Yeah.
what it would take to seek these appointments. And then in 2019, I had to do that again when the owners changed hands again. So after that, after about a year, I realized, hey, you know what? I have so many more opportunities if I can control the entire agency myself. I mean, I'm young. I don't want to be working for somebody else. I want to plant the seeds for my future now. I don't want to wait any longer. And I have experience from two prior transitions. I have a replacement that I was a part of hiring and training
Mhm.
very closely, and I'm very comfortable leaving behind to service my clients. The, so, and when my friends who are who are my partners encouraged me to do that for myself. And one of them was a CPA, the other is a real estate professional. So we decided to start an insurance agency in uh, November of 2019, and we officially began operations. After I left my previous agency, we in February, and we officially started in March
Mhm.
of
Like
last year
right before the
for the
pandemic
pandemic.
hit. Yeah.
So insurance is a business where you talk face to face, you touch base, you interact personally, you
Mhm.
knock on doors, you visit businesses, and boom, everything's down. So
Yeah.
it's been quite a ride, but I'm still around, and
That's good.
the future couldn't be more brighter.
Hmm. Do you
It's
guys have a lot of like Asian American clients?
I do. They comprise the vast majority of my
Hmm.
clientele because I feel like non-Asian Americans, they have a lot of options to choose from. They're very, very, very um, talented insurance agents out there. My colleagues, some of the most hardworking people that do this um, work really hard for their clients. I mean, the whole point of having insurance is to not let these unforeseen events, these disasters impact our life so much. I mean, prior to the insurance industry, the way it is now in modern times, I mean, people were at the mercy of natural disasters. Everything that they've worked for, their enterprises, their wealth, it was subject to just, it could all be gone in a flash. Their legacy completely destroyed. But over the last 400 years or so, the modern economy boomed and the insurance industry along with it. People were able to accurately assess the probability of something terrible like that happening. The industry was able to price it. Actuarial sciences that measure risk and prices it accordingly emerged as a very prominent field. And when people were able to insure their wealth and create a safety net, I think humanity as a whole were emboldened to reach higher. And one example that I can mention is that like banks. Banks, whenever you get a loan from a bank, they ask, hey, do you have collateral? So that if you're unable to meet your debt service obligations, we're going to have to take over your collateral. And oftentimes when you take out a mortgage for a house, that house becomes the collateral. If you're unable to pay your mortgage every month, then that bank's going to close the loan down and take over the house. Well, the banks are only willing to do that because that collateralized asset is insured. So the bank doesn't want the house to burn down and for them to lose out on the loan contract. And by having this mechanism called insurance, banks were more willing to give out loans. Credit blew up. Credit, I mean, the loans that you give, banks willing to lend people money so that they could do something valuable with it, that they could create more value with the loan that they got. It was only made possible because the insurance industry provided them a guarantee for their collateral. The credit's a very important part. It goes beyond what I wanted to talk about at this interview, but credit was a very important part of the growth of the modern economy as we know it today. And insurance played an integral role in bringing that economic reality to life. So I feel very fortunate and privileged to be a part of this industry. And a lot of people may not know how important it is what we do here, but the wealth and the comforts that we enjoy today in the 21st century, it was partly made possible by the growth of the insurance industry. I'd like to say this to all of my college friends too. It's the biggest kept secret. No one wants to go to college and grow up to be an insurance broker or an agent, but the opportunities there are incredible. Some of the Fortune 500 companies are insurance companies and brokerages. You can get global perspective and a wealth of experience as an intern in insurance. And there are so many fascinating companies out there to work for. And I hope to be one of them, 20, 30 years down the road.
Yes. Outside of like what you do with insurance, what kind of community involvements are you a part of in Houston?
So this is a very important part of my life. Like I said, community involvement, my volunteering and my professional life, when one grew, the other followed. So I didn't just solely focus on community. I didn't solely focus on business. It goes hand in hand. I think that there's a feedback loop where communities support businesses and businesses support communities and everybody benefits. And I will tell you this one story about why I was encouraged to move to Houston. In 2005, I was still in New Orleans, but I had heard about this group of young Korean Americans who young professionals. They host a Korean festival in downtown Houston every year. So in 2015, I drove all the way from New Orleans to Houston to check out the Korean festival, and being held at Discovery Green on a beautiful Saturday, it was just the most amazing thing I had ever seen. I mean, there are tens of thousands of people there. Korean culture, Korean food. And for me, as a 1.5 generation, like I said, the middle child who struggled with his own identity, for me to see something like that was um, it was it was a big it left it last it was a lasting impression. I'm never gonna forget what I felt there, standing in the middle of Jones Lawn, looking up into the building, Korean traditional music in the background, and everybody having a great time. Uh, it it was an epiphany for me, and I said to myself, I have to be a part of this. I
Mhm.
want to do this, and make it strong, grow it. I don't care. I don't care if I'm just um, you know, moving ice from the ice truck all day. I have to be a part of it. So that played a significant role in me wanting to come to Houston.
Yeah.
And plus, all of the people that I met through the organization was amazing. Um, they're some of my closest friends to this day. I didn't have any family or friends here, but the Korean American Society of Houston and the Korean Festival, the people that work there, they've become my family here in Houston. And once I got the job offer, I was like, yeah, this is the easiest decision ever. I'm moving to Houston right now. So in 2016, I moved to Houston, and I immediately became, involved in CASH, the Korean American Society of Houston, and the Korean Festival.
Yeah.
And
The
by
photos that you sent, right?
Yes, yes. So by 2017, I was the president, and I served as the president of the organization and the Korean Festival in 2018 and 2019.
Mhm.
Now I'm currently serving as a board member. And, you know, this involvement with Cash in the Korean Festival was actually what gave me the opportunity to interview you today. So I have a lot to thank for everybody
Yeah.
that was a part of the organization. And there are struggles of running a nonprofit.
Mhm.
It's an organization made up entirely of volunteers. And if we want Cash in the Korean Festival to um, continue existing, then it would have to be eventually run like a business. It's so difficult to lead this festival um, without getting paid or anything in return, just as a volunteer activity. It's difficult to do it for more than 2 years. Um,
Mhm.
Life and work gets in the way. You can do this professionally, but not as a volunteer effort. It's an issue and a lesson that I took away, and I hope to help resolve for future generations as a board member of this organization. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Have you been to the Korean festival?
I have not. This is actually my first year in Houston, so I know like obviously this year it probably couldn't happen, but is it still happening like in the upcoming future?
We will continue to host the Korean festival. We haven't any. I don't think we've made any official announcements, so I'll refrain from doing that at this interview.
Mhm.
Um, but if not this year, then for sure next year.
Yes.
So
I will
I hope
definitely
everybody.
visit sometime, like during my time at Rice.
I highly encourage you to check it out. There are YouTube
Yes.
videos out there that show what was going on. I mean, you stand at that stage on Discovery Green and you look at the sea of faces. Just
Mhm.
feel really proud of what you've done. I love whenever I meet a non-Korean, I love to share Korean barbecue, show them how
Yeah.
to make the herb scraps and drink soju, and I love
Mm,
that. I love them. Just their minds are so blown away. This is so simple, but how is it so good? I love getting those reactions from them, and the Korean festival was an opportunity for me to do that on a large scale. Like
yeah.
I think we estimated about 40,000 people in 2019, right? So to be able to host, kind of like hosting a big Korean barbecue party with 40,000 of your friends, that's what it felt like to
Mm,
me.
that sounds really fun. How would you describe like the overall Asian American community in Houston?
The overall Asian American community in Houston is nothing like I've ever seen before. Um, I mean, it's right now. If you pay attention to current events, we're talking about Stop Asian Hate, anti-violence against Asian Americans, and I'm very grateful to be in Houston during these turbulent times. I feel like Asian Americans have a lot of power and influence here. It's not like other cities. Sure, there are instances of that around town, but overall, I mean, Houston being such a diverse, culturally aware city, and Asian Americans having so much business and influence here, it's it's quite a comfortable place to be as an Asian American. I remember going to Miami last year in November. Now standing at a street corner in near South Beach, and there was like a drive-by racial slur, right,
Oh.
thrown at me in Miami,
Mhm.
and it's like I was like, at that point, I had lived in Houston for about 4 years, 4.5 years. So I didn't know what to make of it. I didn't even know to be offended. In fact, what I was thinking was, whoa, like that just really happened? Because I've
Mhm.
forgotten what it was like living in Houston. So Houston's Asian American community is something that I value highly. The people here work hard. We have a strong community. We're in important places throughout the community. The leaders, the mayor, city councilmen, congress people, they all listen to what we have to say. Whenever Cash hosts a Korean festival, I mean, con- congressional representatives are lining up to be a part of the program. The office asked if they could participate. The mayors have previously declared that day as Korean American Day in Houston.
Wow.
I love the fact that we have so much foreign influence. I love the fact that we have a Chinatown with signs in Chinese. Um, we're building an entirely new Asiatown out in Katy. Um, the food here is incredible. The Chinese food here is the best that I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
Our Korean community is a little small, so we're getting there. There are some good
Mhm.
restaurants out there too, but a
Yeah.
lot smaller than the Chinese community.
What do you think like Asian American communities can do about the like AAPI hate that you were mentioning, especially right now during this pandemic? How can like we like unite as a community?
So I haven't really been politically active on the outside, but I I keep up with what's going on in government
Mhm.
um, and pay attention. It's it's very important for the Asian American community to come together and vote as a bloc. Um, Asian Americans, we need to find common ground, issues that matter to us, and caucus together. We have to vote based on issues, not by party, but on issues. And whenever there's an Asian American leader up for office, we should come together and support that person as long as that person represents our views. Um, so not just because they're Asian American, but because they know where we're coming from and they reflect our values. So when someone like that runs for elected office, the community has to put in the effort to make sure that person is elected. And we've had some successes in municipal and state elections in Texas, so we can do a whole lot more. I think As a
Yeah.
community, there are so many civic organizations out there that's promoting um, equitable treatment of Asians, Asian American civic engagement. I think if you're a young person with not a lot of resources, then volunteer your time. You will have so many experiences. You'll learn a lot about what's going on in the world, and it'll expose you opportunities that you never dreamed were available to you. So if you're young, if you're in college, if you recently graduated in college, these organizations can use people like you. So I would highly encourage you to do that. And Asians have to first speak with the vote. Um, and I don't remember how many Asian Americans are here, but hundreds of thousands, if not, yeah, if not approaching a million in the greater Houston area. I'm not sure, but a lot.
Yeah.
So if a significant part of that could vote together on these issues, um, then that would mean a lot. There was a House bill that passed a few months ago that denounced violence against Asian Americans and hatred against Asian Americans. It was before this Stop Asian Hate thing really hit national news. And if you go look at that bill, you can see the list of all the representatives that passed that bill and
Yeah.
representatives that thumbed it down. And if you're a Texas constituent, you could do your part by speaking out and voting against the representatives that thumbed down such resolutions for political reasons. It's enough to make you angry when you see things like that happening. And it's impossible to
Yeah.
not react, especially in light of what's going on. I mean, our grandparents are getting beaten down in public in broad daylight. I mean, how can you
Mhm.
say no to a measure that speaks out against such unimaginable acts of hatred and violence? I mean, the way politics is in our community, I hate that it's so divided, and it's getting in the way of making meaningful, actionable change that's required for people in our communities. So you have to you have to you have to speak with your vote first. And the second part is Asian Americans in this community have a lot of economic resources available to them. It's important that people who have the resources, the wherewithal to vote with their wallets too.
Yeah.
Support candidates that reflect our values as a community. Support organizations that um, encourage Asian Americans to vote more, to be more engaged, to get the word out there. Without active participation, um, these things will continue to happen. So yeah, the power of the vote and providing funding and resources to make that happen. There's a lot of labor and manpower that's needed at these organizations, and labor, nonprofit labor isn't cheap. Um, People with the resources need to support these endeavors. And
Mhm.
I too, I will when when my company is established and I have the resources to provide in nonprofit and charity efforts, I will make sure to contribute to these efforts, as soon as I can. I've already donated
Yeah.
before. This hasn't been a formal thing that I've done through my company yet, but I'm definitely going to think about doing that now.
Yeah. That's really powerful. So it's been like about an hour now. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add to our interview today?
Let's see. Hold on. All right. Hmm. Oh yeah, I had a cookbook recipe that I made up earlier this morning. I was
Oh
wondering
yeah.
did do we talk about the cookbook in the interview, or do we
You can go ahead and send it over, and if you want to talk about it a little bit now, please go ahead.
so I spent a little money this crawfish season. We
Mm,
all had a very difficult winter. I I bought gear so that I live in an apartment, so it's not really the best place for a crawfish boil. But I've been getting invited every weekend to friends, people that I work with, volunteers that I work with. I I've been doing crawfish boils, and it's been incredible. So Houston, we like this style called Viet Cajun, where we mix in some garlic butter on top of the crawfish. And where I come from in Louisiana, we don't do that. We just make the boil really spicy and salty, and we cook the crawfish and we cool down the mixture and let it soak for a long time so that all the flavors and juices get sucked back into the crawfish. Making me hungry. I haven't had lunch yet, but a lot of the places in Houston that I've been to, they ignore the Cajun part of it, fully ignore it. They lightly season the water, but it's okay because they put this delicious Viet Cajun sauce on top, and you mix it up, and the blandness of the crawfish goes away eventually. But what I like to do is I like to stay true to my Cajun roots and properly boil the crawfish. And then I like to put the Viet Cajun sauce on top. So you just get
that
this
sounds so good. My
incredible
like mouth is
amount of
watering.
flavor, right? You
Yeah.
when you stuff the crawfish, it's like you get all the Cajun seasoning, like I'm used to back in Louisiana, and then you have the Viet Cajun sauce coating it on the outside. So it's just a complete experience. And I like we how Viet Cajuns were able to just add a little bit of their influence to something that's wholly traditional and American and make it better. And I like that theme of how Asian Americans contribute to American culture. I mean, we have an Asian ethnic background, but we're all Asian Americans. And I think we need to speak out more about our own Americanness. We we have to recognize that, and we have to be proud of it. And this Viet Cajun, I like to call it the Viet Cajun crawfish. So two Cajuns,
Mm,
right? Viet Cajun crawfish recipe with the Houston Asian American Archive.
yes.
I think this speaks to my history that we've been discussing so far. And
Yes. Please go ahead
we,
and send the
we,
recipe over.
yeah, it's an amazing thing
Yes.
to bring everybody together. Like
Mhm.
this Sunday, I'm having a boil with my former agency colleagues and owners and everyone else in my life. This food, sharing of food and culture is hands down the best way to build relationships and build community. So
Yes, I
I'm
definitely
excited
agree.
to do that on a weekly basis. Comes crawfish
Yes.
season every year, so it'll be a tradition
Mhm.
starting
Mhm.
from this year. Okay, well, that's all I had
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, thank you so much for
So,
your time. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
okay.